A very good afternoon to you from the studios of Atlantic Television Network in Port Harcourt. This is ATN International News for today. Before we begin, let's take a look at the biggest stories making the headlines. Outrage over farmer accused of feeding women to pigs in South Africa. Rwanda set to start trials of vaccine for Marburg viral disease. Argentina budget cuts sparks student protests. Buried U.S. Second World War bomb explode at airport in Japan. Taiwan hospital fire leaves at least 9 dead as typhoon batters islands south. Russia launches major drone attack on Ukraine. These and many more stories to come your way in a moment. Do stay with us.
The people of Maiduguri need your help. A catastrophic flood has engulfed the city, leaving over 1 million residents stranded and fighting for survival. Entire communities are submerged, with people trapped inside homes and on rooftops cut off from food, clean drinking water and essential supplies. Health experts are warning of a potential outbreak of deadly diseases, and medical facilities are out of commission. The situation is dire. Helicopters, boats and high-riding trucks capable of navigating the treacherous, waterlogged areas are urgently required to reach the countless men, women and children still awaiting rescue. The Nigerian media is issuing a desperate plea to the government, humanitarian organizations, international actors and citizens across the nation. Step in now, before it's too late. For more information on how you can help, contact Professor Usman A. Tar, the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Borno State, on 0809-233-3955. Every second counts.
This is powered by Atlantic Television Network.
Thanks for staying with us, and now we begin with Africa. Zambia is facing severe electricity blackouts, and with cities and towns experiencing 3 consecutive days of power cuts. The crisis is exacerbated by El Nino droughts, which have reduced power generation capacity. Despite having the Zambezi River and Kariba Dam, 84% of Zambia's electricity comes from water reservoirs, with only 13% coming from coal, solar, diesel and heavy fuel oil contribute only 3%. ATN learns that Zambia's energy crisis has been worsened by the country's coal-fired power plant, Maamba Energy, which is currently under maintenance. The government has struggled to solve the crisis due to its dependence on the Kariba Dam and financial constraints. Electricity is being imported from Mozambique and South Africa to ease the situation, particularly in the mining industry. Zambia's Kariba Dam, located on the Zambezi River, is experiencing a drought that has led to a reduction in its 1,080 megawatt installed capacity. The dam, built in the 1950s, is responsible for the country's largest underground power station. Engineer Kefas Museba reports that water levels have dropped to the lowest level in the basin's history, causing an electricity crisis in businesses and homes, as well as difficulty in finding bread due to high generator cost. The Zambian government has installed generators in some markets, offices and hospitals, but kidney patients continue to struggle due to power outages. Some patients need dialysis machines for up to 3 hours a day, but power only restores for an hour or 2. Life becomes more difficult for everyone, with food budgets tighter due to the cost of living crisis. The government encourages solar panels and scraps import taxes, but some people argue they don't generate enough electricity. Many families have resorted to using portable gas stoves, but shops run out of gas due to high demand. The electricity crisis in Zambia has affected boreholes and homes, causing water shortages and sanitation issues. Schools advise children to take 5 liters of water daily to prevent waterborne diseases. Many families fill buckets with water to survive the blackouts. Zambians are frustrated and angry, pointing out the failure of previous governments to plan ahead. President Hichilema's administration pledges to invest in renewable energy sources and reduce dependence on hydropower. Veteran South African gospel artist Solomon Molo Cohen, popularly known as Soli Moholo, has died at the age of 65. His management has announced. The award-winning music icon had been in hospital for several weeks after falling ill while on a music tour in Botswana last month, according to reports. He rose to fame in the early 2000s and became a household name in South African traditional gospel music. His management said he would be fondly remembered for the healing music he gave them over the years. Last month, Moholo's team said he had suffered a stroke and was experiencing multiple organ failure. His family launched a public appeal for funds to cover his medical costs. It is with great sadness that we are informing you on behalf of the Molo Cohen family that is Solo Moholo's family that our beloved legend Soli Moholo has sadly passed on, his management said. He passed on the 2nd of October 2024 whilst in hospital. Moholo was known for its hits such as Dai Pope, Sal Dance, Kalasasi, Labo Fellow, Shosha Jonis, and many others. Fellow gospel singers, friends and fans have taken to social media to pay tributes to the late gospel star. The ruling African National Congress described Moholo as a true icon in the South African music industry. His powerful voice, passion for spreading the word of God, and dedication to uplifting the spirits of many through his music will forever be remembered. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula posted an X. You will live forever in the hearts of South Africans, Int Tit, the South African government posted. Case of 2 black women who were allegedly shot and fed to pigs by a white farmer and 2 of his workers had caused outrage in South Africa. Maria Magato, 45 years old, and Lucia Ndlovu, 34 years old, were allegedly looking for food on the farm near Polokwane in South Africa's northern Limpopo province in August when they were shot. Their bodies were then alleged to have been given to pigs in an apparent attempt to dispose of the evidence. A court has begun hearing whether to grant bail to farm owner Zachariah Johannes Olivia, 60 years old, and his employees Adran DeWaite, 19 years old, and William Musora, 50 years old, ahead of their murder trial. The 3 men have not yet been asked to enter a plea in court, which will happen when the trial begins at a later date. Protesters demonstrated outside court in Polokwane, holding placards demanding that the suspects be denied bail. The incident has exacerbated racial tensions between black and white people in South Africa, particularly in rural areas. The family of Ms. Magato, who died in a pigsty, is devastated by her killings and hopes that the alleged killers are denied bail. The opposition Economic Freedom Fighters Party has called for the farm to be shut down. The South African Human Rights Commission has condemned the killings of 2 white farmers and called for anti-racism dialogues. Farming communities feel under attack in a country with a high rate of crime, but there is no evidence that farmers are at great risk. 2 other incidents have ratcheted up racial tension recently. A farmer and his security guard were arrested for allegedly murder of 2 men and a 70-year-old white farmer driving over a 60-year-old boy for stealing an orange. The National Prosecuting Authority is opposing the accused bail application. Mozambique's ruling party candidate in this month's elections, who is almost certain to win, is likely to continue relying on Rwanda's military and European money to secure its huge gas fields in a region beset by Islamist violence, analysts say. Ex-high school teacher Daniel Chapo is said to oversee 2 LNG projects in northern Cabo Delgado province, requiring the support of Rwanda's military. The project, backed by President Felipe Nyusi, is aimed at securing territory around the Afungi site for Total Energies and ExxonMobil. Nyusi introduced Chapo to Rwandan President Paul Kagame in June, indicating continuity. Rwandan security forces could build a new camp in Kwisanga district to buffer against insurgent activity. Recent attacks by suspected Islamists include a February ambush that killed more than 20 Mozambican soldiers, helping displace tens of thousands of people in one of the worst skirmishes since 2021, when Total Energies halted its $20 billion project. ExxonMobil's neighboring project is also on hold, frustrating Mozambique's ambitions to become a major gas export. Total Energy CEO Patrick Poyani suggests restarting work this year if security improves, but funding is a concern. ExxonMobil will finalize investments by end 2025. Rwanda remains key, and EU is considering further support for terrorism efforts. Rwanda is poised to start vaccine and therapeutic clinical trials to treat Marburg disease. Vian Butera, the Assistant Health Minister, said on Thursday, as the African nation battles its first outbreak of the viral fever that has killed 11. The disease was first confirmed late in September, with 36 cases reported so far, Health Ministry data reveals. About to start vaccine and therapeutic clinical trials to protect high-risk groups, Butera said on X, without giving details of the drug to be tested. The ministry was monitoring 410 people who had made contact with those infected. He added, while 5 more had tested negative but awaited the results of further tests. A viral hemorrhagic fever, Marburg disease, has symptoms from severe headache to vomiting, muscle and stomach ache, and can kill some patients, the ministry has said. With a fatality rate as high as 88%, it belongs to the same virus family as the responsible for Ebola, and is transmitted to humans by food baths before spreading through contact with the bodily fluids of those infected. Neighboring Tanzania had cases of Marburg in 2023, as did Uganda in 2017. The revelation on Wednesday evening that Melania Trump's forthcoming memoir includes a full-throated defense of abortion rights, an issue her husband Donald Trump has repeatedly flip-flopped on during his presidential campaign, left people on both sides of the issue less than impressed. Melania Trump defended the right to abortion later in pregnancy, a procedure her husband has demonized. However, her husband disagrees, leading to over 1 in 3 American women living under a Trump abortion ban. The Harris campaign argues that if Trump wins in November, he will ban abortion nationwide, punish women, and restrict reproductive health care access. Anti-abortion activists have expressed frustration with Melania Trump's recent book release, arguing it undermines her message to pro-life voters. Trump has struggled to redefine his message on abortion rights amid outrage over Roe v. Wade. Despite appointing 3 Supreme Court justices who voted to overturn Roe, Trump has pledged to prioritize women's reproductive rights and not sign a national abortion ban. Melania Trump's comments on abortion may be seen as insulting to anti-abortion voters who feel abandoned by Trump, according to Republican campaign strategist Liz Mayer. Anti-abortion advocates run powerful get-out-the-vote operations, which were key to Trump's 2016 victory. Pollster Tresak on them believes the comments are a campaign move. Melania Trump's comments on abortion rights are unlikely to comfort moderate or conservative voters, according to Ondem. Trump has rarely expressed her political views and has vanished from Donald Trump's 2024 campaign. Undian believes Trump has not had any influence on abortion policy. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have visited Georgia and North Carolina, which were both acutely affected by Hurricane Helene. Biden, who was in North Carolina, announced additional funding for debris removal and emergency protective measures. Biden said the hurricane would cost billions of dollars. Congress has an obligation to make sure states have the necessary resources, he said. Harris in Georgia handed out meals and said she wanted to personally take a look at the devastation, which is extraordinary. She expressed admiration for how people are coming together. People are helping perfect strangers. We are here for the long haul, she said. Harris also toured a Red Cross relief center and received a briefing from local officials, praising those working to meet the needs of people who must be seen and must be heard. Georgian Parliamentary Speaker Shalva Papushvili said in a Facebook post on Thursday that he had signed into law a family values bill curbing LGBT rights just weeks before a high-stakes parliamentary election. Lawmakers from the ruling Georgian Dream Party last month approved a bill which bans gender transitions and could outlaw pride marches and displays of the LGBT rainbow flag. The party says the law is necessary to protect Georgia's Orthodox Christian Church from outsiders. President Salome Zurabishvili, a critic of the ruling party, had refused to sign the bill into law. Georgian Dream and its allies in parliament had enough seats to overcome her opposition. Georgian LGBT activists say that the law is an attempt by Georgian Dream to boost support among conservative voters ahead of the October 26 election, in which the party is seeking an unprecedented fourth term in power. Some Western countries have criticized the bill, casting it as part of what they say is a turn towards authoritarianism and alignment with Russia, in countries that had mainly leaned towards the West since the breakup of the Soviet Union. Opinion polls show that Georgian Dream remains the country's most popular single party against a divided opposition, though it has lost ground since 2020, when it won almost 50% of the vote and a narrow majority in parliament. Georgian Dream, founded by the country's richest man, has also enacted a law requiring groups that receive funding from abroad to register as foreign agents, which its opponents say it's modeled on legislation used to criminalize dissent in Russia. Relations with Moscow have overshadowed politics for decades in Georgia, which has been a candidate to join NATO and the EU. Moscow supports separatists in two ethnic regions who broke away from Tbilisi's role in wars in the 1990s. The Russian forces defeated Georgia in a brief war in 2008 rather. Georgian Dream argues that its opponents would bring a return to war and say it would pursue more stable relations with Russia. Former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, one of Donald Trump's fiercest Republican antagonists, will join Democratic Kamala Harris at a campaign event in Wisconsin on Thursday, aimed at reaching out to moderate voters and rattling the GOP nominee. Cheney was the top Republican on the House committee that investigated the January 6, 2021 insurrection, earning Trump's disdain and effectively exiling herself from her own party. Cheney lost her House seat to a Trump-endorsed candidate 2 years ago, and she endorsed Harris, the Democratic nominee, last month. The two women will appear together in a historic white schoolhouse in Ripon, where a series of meetings held in 1854 to oppose slavery's expansion led to the birth of the Republican Party. Harris is opening a two-day stay in Wisconsin and Michigan. Trump himself will be in Michigan on Thursday as the two candidates grapple for wins in the so-called Blue Wall battleground states, which also include Pennsylvania. Harris' visit to Wisconsin follows the unsealed court filing against Trump for his 2020 election attempt. The Chinese, who previously opposed Democrats, are now supporting Harris. Harris aims to portray her candidacy as a patriotic choice for independent and conservative voters who were disturbed by Trump's unwillingness to cede power. Trump denies his defeat with false claims of vote fraud. Harris on Friday will hold a campaign rally in Flint, Michigan, continuing her tour of so-called blue wall states that have been critically to Democratic victories in presidential races. Trump won Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan in 2016, and Joe Biden won them in 2020. Trump on Thursday will hold a rally in Saginaw County, a bellwether in the center of the state. The Republican candidate has ramped up his focus on Michigan, holding 2 rallies there less than a week ago. In 2020, Biden's win in Saginaw County by a slim 303 votes contributed to his victory in the state. Hundreds of thousands of Argentine students protested in the streets on Wednesday against sharp spending cuts at public universities by President Javier Milei's libertarian government. ATN gathered that the protests were organized after the administration threatened to veto a law Congress passed weeks ago to guarantee university funding, as Argentina faces an economic crisis with annual inflation close to 240% and over half of its population in poverty. The government has a systematic, methodical and gradual plan to destroy public education, Ricardo Gelpi, head of the University of Buenos Aires, said in a statement. The head of Argentina's FUA University Federation, Piera Fernandez, told the crowds that public university education is fighting for its survival, adding that spending on education and science is an investment, not an expense. In April, a protest that drew hundreds of thousands of students and teachers forced Milei to reconsider a cut in the higher education budget. University authorities later said the government did not make promised improvements. Argentina's Ministry of Human Capital said in a statement that the government's commitments to public universities remained firm. Public university education was never defunded, it said. Francisco Mateus da Silva, 67 years old, lives in the Amazon River Valley in the region of Amazonas, facing the worst drought on record. The drought has paralyzed river transportation, leaving many isolated and unable to leave their homes. The state of Amazonas has 62 municipalities in a state of emergency, while ACAR has 21. Around 70% of all cities in the region are affected by the drought, with almost 300 under severe or extreme conditions. The droughts this year and last year were severe and left a lot of damage. Elinade Rodriguez, also from São Francisco de Maina, lives between the Amazon River and the Puraqueguara Lagoon near Manaus. The Negro River, the main access to Manaus, is now 20 centimeters below its record low, affecting access to supplies in the city and surrounding communities. The drought has left many people in the area struggling to get around and access essential resources. The Dominican Republic on Wednesday announced an immediate plan to deport up to 10,000 migrants per week as it ramps up enforcement along its border with Haiti, despite UN pleas for it not to expel people to its conflict-hit neighbor. The announcement from the Caribbean island nation did not specify that the plan will target Haitians, but nationals from its neighbor have made up the vast majority of deportees. If implemented, the plan would mark significant growth in deportations after more than 200,000 Haitians were forcibly returned last year, according to UN data. In its statement, the President's office pointed to the slow progress and limited results of a UN-backed security mission sent to help Haitian police retake control of the capital from the growing presence of armed gangs. The plan calls for more border inspectors, surveillance drones, and building temporary repatriation camps, while taking into account both security and human rights, Figueroa said. A spokesperson for Haiti's Prime Minister did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The United Nations has asked countries including the Dominican Republic and the United States to halt deportations to Haiti, where severe hunger has soared and is now affecting nearly half the population of around 11 million. 6 migrants have died after soldiers in Mexico opened fire on a vehicle carrying a group of 33 people who were traveling in the south of the country. The Mexican Defense Ministry said another 10 migrants were injured in the incident on Tuesday evening, some 25 miles north of the border with Guatemala. The ministry said a military patrol saw the migrants' pickup vehicle traveling at high speed, which made an apparent attempt to avoid being stopped. Soldiers reported hearing explosions, after which 2 officers opened fire, the statement said, adding that they have been removed from the duties while an investigation is carried out. Mexico is under pressure from the U.S. to crack down on the number of migrants making their way through the country to reach the American border. The driver attempted to escape but lost control of the vehicle. 4 people died at the scene, while 2 of the 12 wounded died in hospital. The remaining 17 passengers were handed over to immigration authorities. The Defense Ministry has informed federal prosecutors and the military tribunal will investigate. The ministry is committed to adhering to the rule of law and zero impunity policy and is ready to assist civil authorities in revealing the facts. Thousands of migrants travel through Mexico each year in buses, overcrowded lorries and on freight trains as they try to get to the U.S.-Mexican border. They run the risks of fatal accidents, kidnapping by criminal groups, and extortion by corrupt officials. In December 2021, a people smuggler's lorry overturned in Chiapas, killing 56 mostly Central American migrants. Federal authorities have charged 68 members of California-based white supremacist street gang with crimes in an attempt to dismantle the organization. At least 42 members of the San Fernando Valley Parkerwoods gang based in Los Angeles County have been arrested in a 76-count indictment. Charges include racketeering, drug trafficking, illegal firearm possession, fraudulent COVID-19 benefits, and loan fraud. The gang is accused of taking orders from the Aryan Brotherhood, a neo-Nazi gang in California's prisons, and having an alliance with the Mexican Mafia prison gang. The Parkerwoods are accused of trafficking fentanyl and other drugs in the area, as well as committing robberies and financial fraud to fund their activities. And on Wednesday, members used iconography and tattoos, including that of swastikas, the symbol 88, which is code for Hail Hitler, and images of Nazi aircraft to denote their ideology, the Justice Department says. Federal prosecutors say the group primarily trafficked narcotics that include fentanyl, heroin, and methamphetamine. Members in the Hollywood area are accused of maintaining so-called stash houses where drugs were stored. Several members are also facing charges of allegedly submitting false applications for the Payment Protection Program, a COVID-19 initiative that offered loans, many of which were forgivable to keep small business afloat. The Justice Department says the defendants face a maximum sentence of life in prison if convicted. Prosecutors have filed a no-court filing claiming that Donald Trump resorted to crimes to overturn his 2020 election defeat. The filing challenges Trump's claim that he is protected by a landmark Supreme Court's ruling that grants broad immunity from prosecution for official acts conducted while in office. The filing argues that Trump was not always acting in an official capacity, but engaged in a private criminal effort to overturn the 2020 results. The case has been frequently delayed since charges were filed over a year ago, accusing Trump of illegally blocking the certification of President Joe Biden's victory. Prosecutors have filed a court document accusing Trump of lying about his vice president's safety during riots in January 2021. The document alleges that Trump was not upset about the situation and that he was not upset about his vice president's safety. Trump's lawyers fought to keep the filing sealed, but campaign spokesman Steve Chung called it falsehood-ridden and unconstitutional. Trump called the filing a hit job and accused prosecutors of egregious misconduct. The filing also alleges Trump planned to declare victory before Election Day and knowingly spread false claims about the vote. The filing also details the Trump campaign's role in sowing chaos in battleground states, including Detroit, Michigan, where a large batch of ballots seemed to favor Biden. Trump and his allies, including lawyer Rudy Giuliani, allegedly sought to exploit the chaos to delay election certification. Trump announced that the case would end with his complete victory, but a trial date has not been set. You're watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. We'll be back after this break. Please do stay with us.
The people of Maiduguri need your help. A catastrophic flood has engulfed the city, leaving over 1 million residents stranded and fighting for survival. Entire communities are submerged, with people trapped inside homes and on rooftops cut off from food, clean drinking water, and essential supplies. Health experts are warning of a potential outbreak of deadly diseases, and medical facilities are out of commission. The situation is dire. Helicopters, boats, and high-riding trucks capable of navigating the treacherous, waterlogged areas are urgently required to reach the countless men, women, and children still awaiting rescue. The Nigerian media is issuing a desperate plea to the government, humanitarian organizations, international actors, and citizens across the nation. Step in now, before it's too late. For more information on how you can help, contact Professor Usman A. Tar, the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Borno State, on 009-233-3955. Every second counts.
This is powered by Atlantic Television Network.
Many thanks for staying with us. This is the broadcast of the International News and Atlantic Television Network. We are open for adverts, placements, bookings, and commercials. You can connect with us and watch us on ATN Socials, Facebook and YouTube Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok Atlantic TV Network 1, X formerly Twitter Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website atlanticnetwork.tv. Now to the rest of our stories. A senior advisor to Vice President Kamala Harris met American Muslim and Arab leaders on Wednesday as Harris' presidential campaign seeks to win back voters angry at U.S. support for Israel's war in Gaza and Lebanon. Harris' National Security Advisor, Phil Gordon, told the community leaders in the virtual meeting that the administration supports a ceasefire in Gaza, diplomacy in Lebanon, and stability in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. The Vice President's office said. Ali Daga, a Lebanese-American attorney and community leader, said the outreach from Harris' office was not enough. Harris, a Democrat, faces Republican former President Donald Trump on November 5th in what polls show to be a tight presidential race. President Joe Biden won most of the 2020 Muslim and Arab votes, but the backing of Democrats have fallen sharply during nearly a year that Israel has been fighting Hamas in Gaza. Activists say Biden and Harris have done too little to stop Israel's military campaign in the Palestinian enclave. The Israeli military offensive in Gaza has killed more than 41,000 Palestinians, Palestinian health authorities say. Israel was responding to an October 7, 2023 incursion by Hamas gunmen, who Israel says killed around 1,200 people and abducted about 250 hostages. Gaza has suffered a humanitarian crisis with nearly all its 2 million people displaced and widespread hunger in the enclave. Lebanon, more than 1,900 people have been killed, 9,000 wounded during almost a year of cross-border fighting between Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah, with most of the deaths in the past 2 weeks, according to Lebanese government statistics. Engage, a Muslim American advocacy group, recently endorsed Harris, while others have urged supporters to shun her. While they have not supported Trump, the choice not to vote or to vote for third-party candidates could hurt Harris, analysts say. U.S. support for Israel has led to large protests, especially in hotly contested swing states like Michigan, that could decide the election. Harris had offered no substantive policy differences in Israel from Biden, who stepped aside as presidential candidate in July. Singapore's senior cabinet minister Subramaniam Iswaran has been sentenced to 12 months in prison for accepting gifts worth over $403,000 while in public office. The charges were deemed an abuse of power and jeopardized public trust. Justice Vincent Hung emphasized that Iswaran's remorse was evident in his letter to the Prime Minister. Singapore's first political figure, Iswaran, will serve his sentence at Changi Prison, causing damage to Singapore's reputation and the People's Action Party. The defense requests 8 weeks, prosecutors 6 to 7 months, as public trust in government integrity is threatened. Singaporean Prime Minister Iswaran is facing allegations of corruption related to his dealings with billionaire property tycoon Ong Beng Seng. The charges first surfaced in July last year, and Iswaran was accused of attempting to avoid investigations into the gifts by requesting that Ong bill him for his flight to Doha. This comes after the former Minister of State for Environment, Wee Tun Boon, was sentenced to 18 months in 1975. Iswaran, originally charged with 35 counts, pleaded guilty to lesser offenses after corruption charges were amended during a trial. The case is part of a series of political scandals that have impacted the ruling People's Action Party, PAP, which has a strong stance against corruption. In 2023, corruption probe into real estate dealings cleared 2 ministers of impropriety, while the Speaker of Parliament resigned due to an extramarital affair. The property scandal raised questions about ministers' privileged positions in Singapore. The PAP faces challenges from an opposition party, while the Workers' Party's leader faces charges of lying under oath. North Korea's Kim Yoo-jong, the powerful sister of leader Kim Jong-un, criticized the military parade held in Seoul for its Armed Forces Day this week and called it a clown show. In a statement carried by state media KCNA on Thursday, she also downplayed South Korea's military capabilities, but put on display during the parade, as well as criticizing the deployment of a U.S. B-1B bomber during Tuesday's parade. South Korean police have detained a North Korean defector from attempting to cross the heavily guarded border back to the north on a stolen bus. The man was caught on the unification bridge that separates the two Koreas, where he ignored soldiers who asked him to stop and crashed the bus into a barricade. Though some 34,000 North Koreans have defected to the south since the Korean peninsula was divided more than 70 years ago, defectors seeking to return to the north are rare. The man, who is in his 30s, told police he had wanted to return home after experiencing difficulties in the south, according to South Korean media. He reportedly left North Korea about a decade ago. He reportedly stole the bus at 1 p.m. local time on Tuesday from a garage in the northern city of Paju and was caught half an hour later. Surveillance footage from the garage showed the man wearing a hat trying to open several vehicles until he managed to get into the bus. He was not found to have been under the influence of alcohol or drugs at the time of the incident, reports say. The man, who has worked as a day laborer in Paju and other cities, told police that he had accumulated several unpaid fines, according to South Korean newspaper. South Korea's law prohibits citizens, including defectors, from crossing the border to the north without government authorization. North Korean defectors in the south are automatically granted citizenship. Offenders may be jailed up to 10 years if convicted. South Korea receives over 1,000 defectors from the north each year. In contrast, the number of defectors returning to North Korea totaled just 31 from 2012 to 2022, according to the South Unification Ministry. U.S. bomb from the Second World War that had been buried at a Japanese airport has exploded, causing a large crater in a taxiway and cancellation of more than 80 flights, but no injuries, Japanese officials said. Land and Transport Ministry officials say there were no aircrafts nearby when the bomb exploded at Miyazaki Airport in southern western Japan on Wednesday. Officials said an investigation by the self-defense forces and police confirmed that the explosion was caused by a 500-pound U.S. bomb and there was no further danger. They were determining what caused its sudden detonation. A video recorded by a nearby aviation school showed the blast spewing pieces of asphalt into the air like a fountain. Videos broadcast on Japanese television showed a crater in the taxiway reportedly about 7 meters in diameter and 1 meter deep. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi said more than 80 flights had been cancelled at the airport, which hopes to resume operations on Thursday morning. Miyazaki Airport was built in 1943 as a former Imperial Japanese Navy flight training field, from which some kamikaze pilots took off on suicide attack missions. A number of unexploded bombs dropped by the U.S. military during the Second World War had been unearthed in the area, Defense Ministry officials said. Fire at a hospital in southern Taiwan killed at least 9 people on Thursday as the island was being battered by a typhoon. The fire occurred in Pingtung County, which has been hit hard by Typhoon Krathon, which made landfall in the afternoon with torrential rains and heavy winds and has brought parts of the island to a standstill. Those who died inhaled smoke from the fire, the sources of which were still under investigation. The evacuation of patients and putting out the flames. Reports said 179 patients were rushed to the front entrance and transferred to ambulances or taps used to shield them from the pouring rain. They were moved to shelters nearby. Krathon made landfall in the major port city of Kaohsiung, packing winds of 126 km per hour with higher gusts, according to Taiwan's weather authorities. The slow-moving typhoon was doused eastern and southern parts of the island over the past 5 days, forcing the Kaohsiung and Pingtung County residents to not go outside when the eye of the storm passes above the area. Flooding and high winds have caused considerable damage to industries from fishing to chemicals, while cutting off transportation routes and electrical networks. Taiwan has made considerable progress in fireproofing public facilities in recent years by banning smoking and boosting implementation of building regulations. Taiwan's government said on Thursday that 2 Chinese nationals have been deported after they harassed a protest held by Hong Kong exiles in Taipei on China's National Day. Democratically governed Taiwan, which Beijing claims as its own territory, is home to a large Hong Kong community who have left the city following the imposition of tough, new national security laws at scale anti-government protests. The Hong Kong Outlanders group said that on October 1st, China's National Day, they had arranged a small protest in central Taipei's fashionable Ximen shopping district when they were verbally harassed and pushed around by a group of Chinese people. The police then intervened, the group added. Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council said the incidents, who were meant to be in Taiwan visiting relatives, had their entry permits revoked and been deported. The government will take immediate and strict action against any mainland Chinese who come to Taiwan and engage in illegal or irregular behavior that endangers the national security and social stability, it said in a statement. Of its week-long National Day holiday, there have been similar incidents in Taiwan before Hong Kong singer and activist Dennis Hu was attacked in 2019 by a masked man who threw red paint at her at a rally in Taiwan held in support of anti-government protests in Hong Kong. Dozens of tigers and lions in captivity died in the past month in southern Vietnam, with tests showing they were positive for bird flu. Health Ministry and state media said on Thursday. 2 samples taken from dead tigers, at Mango Resort in Dong Nai Province have tested positive for the H5N1 strain of bird flu, the Ministry of Health said in a statement. 20 tigers have died at the resort since early last month. The spread of highly pathogenic avian influenza, commonly known as bird flu, to mammals including cows, dogs, cats, and even dolphins worldwide has raised concerns about potential human-to-human transmission. In neighboring Long An Province, 27 tigers and 3 lions died from bird flu at Mai Kyung Safari from September 6 to 18, state media reported, citing provincial agricultural authorities. The tigers at Mango Garden Resort had been fed chicken before they died. Phan Van Phuc, an official of Dong Nai Province's Center for Disease Control, said in the Health Ministry. It is likely that the tigers had been infected from sick chicken, and the authorities are tracking the source of the chicken to determine the cause. The statement quoted Phan as saying, on its website, the World Health Organization warns against consuming raw or incompletely cooked meats and eggs from regions experiencing avian influenza outbreaks due to the high risks of infection. Police in Denmark and Sweden are investigating after hand grenades were thrown near the Israeli embassy in Copenhagen and shots were fired at the Israeli embassy in Stockholm on Tuesday night and the early hours of Wednesday morning. 3 Swedish men were arrested in the Danish capital on Wednesday on suspicion of involvement in 2 explosions near the Israeli embassy at 3:20 a.m. in the Copenhagen district of Hellerup. In a separate incident shortly before 6 p.m. on Tuesday, police in Stockholm attended the Israeli embassy on Strandvägen after reports of a loud bang. Police confirmed the embassy was hit by bullets and have launched an investigation into serious weapons offenses. Nobody was injured. The explosions in Copenhagen were believed to have been caused by hand grenades that damaged a building about 100 meters from the Israeli embassy. Nobody was still injured. 2 men were arrested at Copenhagen Central Station on a train headed for the Danish town of Padborg. A 3rd man was arrested near the embassy. The men arrested on the train were expected to attend a hearing on Thursday, where they will be charged with possession of weapons. The 3 men were aged 15 to 20, police said, adding that it was too early to say anything about a motive or whether they acted alone. 2 Vatican Bank employees, nicknamed Romeo and Juliet, were fired after they violated a ban on employee marriage. The bank's rule aimed to prevent nepotism, but neither resigned, leading to their dismissal. The Vatican Bank said in a statement on Wednesday that it had reached a difficult decision to end their employment contracts because of the formation of a married couple among employees is, in fact, blatantly contradictory to the current regulations within the institute. The bank statement that the bank said that the primary objective of the marriage ban was to avoid the reputational risks of accusations of nepotism and avoid a possible emergence of situations of conflicts of interest in the institute's operations in order to protect its integrity and service to its clients. It's added that the decision, taken with deep regret, was dictated by the need to preserve transparency and impartiality in the Institute's activities and in no way intended to question the right of 2 people to be united in marriage. The newlyweds appealed last month to Pope Francis, who approved the rule, decrying the unjust situation in a long letter, according to Messaggero. The newspaper reported that couple could have the case to the Vatican's court. ADLV, the Association of Vatican Lady Workers, had intervened on the couple's behalf, arguing that the birth of a new family should not be endangered by bureaucratic regulations. It is not the first workers' dispute to embroil the Holy See. In May, dozens of employees at Vatican museums launched an unprecedented legal dispute over job conditions and workplace safety.